Welcome to Dr Joe Unplugged. This podcast contains general information and is not in any way medical advice. It's always good to learn new words. I remember reading in the biography of Australian entrepreneur and businessman Kerry Stokes that he would have a dictionary and each day for a number of years look to learn one new word. Biophilia is not a word that I was previously familiar with, and according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it is defined as a hypothetical human tendency to interact or be closely associated with other forms of life in nature, a desire or tendency to commune with nature. The term was coined, and I'll put the reference link down below. The term was coined by Harvard naturalist Dr. Edward O. Wilson to describe what he saw as humanity's innate tendency to focus on life and lifelike processes and to be drawn towards nature, to feel an affinity for it, a love, a craving. Now, I think it's fair to say that most people like getting outdoors and into nature. The sky is blue and there's some trees or some green grass or flowers. We typically feel good about it. It does cheer us up. It's not a treatment in inverted commas for depression, although there are some schools of thought and in fact some work that has shown that spending more time in nature does correlate with less, not none, but less mental health problems. And it's also been shown that concentration can be enhanced, and this is both in children and in adults, by getting into nature for a period of time and, surprise, surprise, getting away from our electronic devices. Now, depending where you live in the world, you may be nearer to or further away from nature. So the concept of biophilic design, and this is really interesting, and I'll put my hand up and say this is not an area I was particularly familiar with. In fact, I wasn't familiar with it at all before coming across this article. The concept of biophilic design utilises natural light, materials, patterns, airflow, the presence of watercolours, sounds and phenomena experienced while outdoors to maintain a connection to nature within an indoor environment. Biophilia is not just a philosophy. It has been found to support physical health, psychological well-being, and cognitive function while providing the beauty of nature, which may be beneficial, as estimates are that most people spend 90% of their time indoors. Now, again, for people who live in rural and remote areas, that's probably not the case. They're spending more time outdoors, but most of us live in cities or towns, even if they're towns in the country. Now, again, one doesn't necessarily have to spend, large amounts of money on fancy architectural design. You can, obviously you do it if you want to and are able to. But there are simple things like, for example, indoor plants, like having, water features if that works. Again, depending upon preferences, people can choose colours that are a little bit more aligned to nature. Maybe having windows in a position. And again, it depends. Obviously, if you're renting, you can't change where the windows are. But, if you're building a house or changing, you can do it that, maybe has a bit more of an outlook. Or again, if you live in an apartment, are you near to a park? Can you spend a little bit of time there? And again, it comes back to the use perhaps of indoor plants and ways of trying to get a little bit more of the natural world incorporated. Certainly, we're not living in caves anymore, and this is not any sort of yearning for the past, but, and we've spoken in previous podcasts about the benefits of modern society, but there are also drawbacks, and I think one of them is that we have become a bit disconnected from nature, and again, this is not to say we have to go out and hug trees or, go and live in caves, but it is saying that we are part of the natural world, and, spending some time in said natural world is beneficial. Most people will report feeling better if they, just feeling a little bit better about the world, if they've been outside for a walk in the park or, a run through a park area or down at the beach or by the river or anywhere where there is part of the, the natural world. And again, if it's pouring with rain and thunderstorms, probably not the day to do it, I wouldn't have thought, but, there's enough days in most places in the world to be able to do that for at least some of the day. And again, we're reminded how muddle-headed the world has been in the early part of the 2020s, when something that is as good for our health as spending time outdoors, and that can include, but is not restricted to, more vigorous physical exercise, but just being outdoors and the benefits of fresh air and sunshine, that these things were severely restricted. And that has, major negative impacts on health. But to come back to focusing on the positive, what can we do? We can look at our houses and our apartments, our indoor living environment, and are there ways of incorporating some more natural input? Look, I think the answer to that is yes, and it doesn't have to be particularly expensive. Is it the answer to all problems? Of course not, but nothing needs to be. With health, it really is about the total, trying to be a bit bigger than the sum of the parts. So everything that you can do that is going to help your health a little bit, and certainly some, this concept of biophilia and having involvement or engagement with the natural world, both inside and outside, is good for our well-being. It's good for our state of mind and our mental health. So it's just something to factor in and perhaps look to incorporate in your daily life.
Thanks for listening to Dr. Joe Unplugged. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share. You can also follow it on all the socials. There'll be new content uploaded each week.